All right, we're there. Sorry about that. No worries, all good. Okay, so with regards to this presentation, what we're going to be doing, we are going to share some of the latest research with regards to resiliency in the workplace. But more than that, we're really going to focus in on building a business case. Why do we care about resiliency in our businesses? And then we're going to focus in and spend a lot of time looking at best practices. What are things that you can do within your businesses to build that resiliency? All right, we're going to take a couple minutes and just tell you a little bit more about us and who we are, and then we're going to find out about what brought you all here. So I'll start off with, as you know, my name is Susan Sawatsky. I am the president and founder of InScope Solutions, and we are a consulting and training company that's been around for well over a decade. In terms of my background, I have a master's in industrial psychology and various safety designations. Many people don't really know what an industrial psychologist is or what they do. So an industrial psychologist is a professional who works with businesses to help them figure out their actions, their processes, their systems that really focus in on their human capital, their people. And what I've learned in working with businesses is that making businesses better for people makes better businesses. I've had a bit of a long career path in that my first career, I started off as a junior high math and sciences teacher. And I like to note that that's where I learned all my stress management skills. But more than that, when I was a teacher, I learned a lot about instructional design. And I learned about making learning meaningful and interactive. And we put a lot of that into our workshops and our presentations and our training. And I had to learn that pretty quickly because if you're in front of a group of junior high students and you're not engaging, yeah, you're very quickly done for. I continue on with my teaching in my current career. I'm currently an instructor for 3 universities. I instruct for the University of Alberta, the University of Calgary, and the University of New Brunswick. I instruct in the areas of human risk factors. So I work with HR and health and safety professionals, helping them to learn more about things like fatigue risk management, psychological health and safety in the workplace, business and leadership, and more.
So hi everyone, I'm Rowan Slotsky, as some of you may know. I see lots of familiar faces. So I work with InScope Solutions as a communication and training consultant. So mainly I just focus on training and educating, also marketing, media, that kind of stuff. And I have a bachelor's degree of communications and media from University of Calgary. No, she did not teach me. It was a separate program. And I've been with InScope for about 5 years. So I mostly work as a professional trainer. I take safety and HR concepts, and I just try to translate them into business solutions that people can use in their organizations to help with those business outcomes. And together, we're InScope Solutions. So we work as training and consulting company. We go into businesses and we mainly focus on topics like the human risk factors. So that includes things like stress and fatigue management, mental health and wellness. We do supervisor training, harassment prevention, and just enhancing overall workplace cultures for organizations.
Although we hail from Barhead, we have actually had the privilege of working with large organizations all across Canada and the US. We've worked with a number of really interesting clients, but I think our most notable client is probably NASA. We've had the chance to work with them 5 or 6 times now. We worked with everyone from engineers to astronauts in the area of fatigue risk management.
And we're very excited because we've recently been chosen as a 2023 top 10 industrial training provider by Manufacturing Outlook magazine. So we're really honored to have gotten that award recently, and you can keep an eye out for that publication coming up in the next couple of months.
Okay, so that's enough about us and who we are. We want to spend a minute and find out about you guys and who's in the room and what brought you here. So I'm going to actually ask you to take out your phone. I know most presenters tell you to put it away, but we want you all to take it out. And there's a couple ways you can get into this activity. So first, you can open a browser and go to Kahoot, KAHOOT.IT. And in a minute, we're going to give you a game pin. You put in your nickname and you'll be in the room. The second way that you can do it, hang on just one moment. Is you can just point your camera at that QR code and that will instantly bring you in, and then you can just put in your nickname and you're in the room. So I'll leave that code up for a minute and hopefully start to see people popping in the room here pretty quick. So I'll shrink that down. We got a few people in the room already. That is good. No. Do you want to spend a minute? There's volume. Yeah, sorry guys, with the putting it in Zoom, we lost it.
Oh, excuse me.
You can do that way. We'll let you guys keep coming in the room. Everybody remembers that.
Are you guys still connected to the
it's not taking any volume.
658.
So I turn the commenting.
You're getting that sound, right? So maybe, and then it goes, because I'm connected to the speakers. You don't have the volume. Thanks, guys. We're just trying to get our sound figured out. So we do have some videos coming, so we want to make sure we've got some sound.
My sound is turned up. It's not projecting through. Oh yeah, for sure.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate your patience.
And I may need to unconnect.
If you're connected in, keep your phone screen open because otherwise she'll drop out. So keep your phone active. There we go.
Okay, and so it's total PA glow.
In.
Turn up your volume.
There we go. There we go. Okay. There we go. We have sound. Yay. Perfect. Sound again. We did that. All right. Good. Okay. Let's jump in. Ready? Yeah. There we go. Okay. We're ready to start? All right. This first one is just short answer. You're going to type in your answer. Some of them you're going to be multiple choice and you'll pick the color and shape that matches, but we'll walk you through it as we go. All right. What brought you here today? So in a short 2 or 3 words, just tell us what brought you in. What made you show up today? Okay. We gave a little bit extra time for this. We thought some people might want to think about it. So you got a full minute to get those answers in. Good. All those pops mean we got people coming in. 30 more seconds to think on it. People still type in. Okay, just a few more seconds. Get your answer in. Okay, 5 more seconds. I think we're good. I think everybody's got theirs in. 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Okay, good. Lots of things coming in. Facebook, learning about burnout. We joked that one was going to come up as the biggest. So the more answer gets put in, the bigger it gets. We're like, yeah, we know this one's coming up top. I love it. All right. Okay, this one is just a poll. How many of you are experiencing issues with staffing shortages? Would you say yes, significant issues, yes, moderate issues, yes, mild issues, no shortages? Pick your color and shape that match the answer that you see up here. So if it's significant, you're going to pick the red triangle. Moderate, it's going to be blue diamonds. 2 more seconds to put it in. All right. Okay, so we've got quite a few people having moderate issues. We've got a couple people with significant issues. We've got lots with mild issues and some with no shortages. So that's really good. Which of the following do you feel is most impacting your business? So out of these choices, would you say employee mental health and well-being, attracting and retaining employees, workplace productivity, or absenteeism? Which of those 4 would you say is the biggest issue for your organization? Nice because it gives us a chance to sort of see what's going on in town, right? Okay, what do we find? Okay, employee mental health and well-being hit #1 by quite a bit. Workplace productivity and attracting and retaining were somewhere in the middle, and then absenteeism was a smaller one. Okay, #4. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your business in terms of resilience? Now this one's a little unique. You're going to move that number pad on your phone around until the little dot matches the number you want. So take a look at your phone, you're going to move that number around. Does that make sense? Okay, and when it's on the one that you like, the number that matches, just hit submit. One being good, 10 being bad? Yes. No. Oh, sorry. 1 being bad, 10 being good. 10 being good, I'm sorry, yes. All right, well, we were somewhere in the range there. Pretty much 5 to 9 was kind of most. So, all right, good. So, fairly good in resilience, moving our way up. And how many employees do you have? So let's just find out number of employees in the group. Under 5 to 25, 26 to 100, over 100. Okay, so again, pretty big range, a few smaller businesses, lots of medium size, and then a couple big businesses in the group. Excellent. All right. What industry is your business? So just type in your industry. We'll sort of see what industries we have. This one's going to make a word cloud like the beginning. Okay, lots of different industries: retail, business support, automobile, construction, tourism, rec. Lots of government, lots of human services, some policing in the room. That was excellent. Good stuff. Lots of different businesses. Fantastic. Restaurants. Good. Okay, last question. What is something you would like to get out of today? What is something that you're hoping to really take home to your businesses when we go back to work this afternoon? Okay. Yeah, so this one, you have a little bit longer to be able to type. So if you want to put like a full sentence, you can get that in as well. This one's not going to be a word cloud, it's just going to pop off with all of the things that we noted. When you've got it in, hit submit, and then it might ask, I think it's going to ask you to pick a key word. So hit submit and leave yourself enough time to take a keyword. There we go. Okay, 10 seconds. Try and make sure you get your answers in. Nice. Six, good job. Okay, lots of great answers here. Improving the work, employee happiness, burnout, stress, helping with employee issues, giving some resources, looking at our concerns, some strategies, retaining staff, again, those tools, but a few of those are great tools for you today. Looking at burnout and learning about balance. We got a last one in there, good stuff. Finding ways to support and improve mental health. Opportunity to look at those resources, resilience and optimism. Sorry, I got to step a little closer to you. Okay, again, some more burnout and mental health. Regional issues, good. Enhancing culture and ideas to apply to the workforce. Good stuff. I think we should hit most of those, so fantastic. All right, thank you guys. That really helps us see who's in the room and gets us a feel for where we're going to be going.
Okay. We're going to start off by jumping into resilience. So I want us all to take a minute and imagine a company. And this company really thrived once upon a time, but in recent years, they've been struggling. They continually advertise hiring people, but having troubles finding good people to bring on. And because of that, the remaining employees are feeling overworked, which is just adding to the stress. And that means they start taking more sick days, adds even more stress to the employees that are still working and still showing up. This means there's been a decline in overall profitability for this company, and that's been leading to more complaints from clients and customers. So what would they do? Where would this business even start? We're really going to look at that today. We're going to look at how they're going to address these issues and bring their business back to a place where it is successful and thriving. And to do that, we want to start by looking at resilience. So what is resilience? The interesting thing about resilience is that it's not necessarily something that you're born with. It's something that can be learned. By definition, it's the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back from difficult events. So this could be involved behaviors, thoughts, and actions that can be learned. So what a lot of the things we're looking at today are doing is we're building coping mechanisms to help build this resilience. Overall, when we're looking at resilience, we're actually going to look at it from two different perspectives. So we're going to look at it, first of all, from an individual employee perspective, ways that we can build resiliency within employees. But we're also going to look at resilience from a business perspective and think how we can build resilience in our organizations. And why is resilience important? Why do we care? Well, we know that if people have unmanaged stress, it's going to have an impact on them. It's going to impact their health and their alertness, their learning, their capacity to function. So when we have resilience in our organization, we see increased productivity and performance. We see things like better problem solving and decision making. We're going to find people have better mental health and well-being, and you're going to see better teamwork and collaboration in your business. And we can look at the stats that relate to that. When we look at performance, resilient employees are 46% less likely to take 6 days and 33% more likely to be productive. In terms of mental health, when we have higher resilience, we're 72% less likely to feel those high stress levels. And employees with higher resilience are 47% better at problem solving and 30% better at collaborating with others. So kind of just giving that big picture, when your organization is lacking in resilience, you're going to struggle to attract and retain that top talent. You're going to have employees working longer to fill the voids. We're going to find absenteeism starts to go up. And you may, as an employer, feel like you really need resources and tools and strategies to be able to tackle this and make it better in your business. So you may be wondering, how do I know how resilient my business is and the employees within it? So we're going to do a quick activity where we're going to ask you 10 questions. And for each question, you're going to answer yes or no. If it's a yes, you just give yourself a point. And if it's a no, you give yourself no points. We're just going to keep track for ourselves. And at the end, we're going to see where your business may be at for resilience. So first off, do you have many long-standing employees and low turnover? I feel like that's pretty accurate to give yourself. Can employees handle changes or problems at work and still get things done efficiently? So when a big change happens or a problem arises, do you find your employees are still pretty good at getting the work done, getting the work done well? Do people at work get along and have minimal conflict? Are your teams very cohesive? They're able to work together? There's not too much conflict in there. And when conflict does occur, does your staff resolve it quickly and move on? You find they're able to work through it, either just themselves or with the manager. They're not holding on to a grudge or bringing it up weeks later. Is work set up so that people have enough time for both their job and their personal life? How is that work-life balance? Are employees openly communicating and collaborating effectively with each other? Do they choose to work together? Do they go out of their way to do so well? Is there a noticeable level of trust and respect between employees and management? This one is really key. So if you think yes, give yourself a point. Do employees feel adequately rewarded for the work that they do? So if they're going above and beyond, do they feel like they got a good reward or pat on the back or a thank you? Are employees able to provide feedback, or do they at least have input into their job? And lastly, do most people have a positive attitude and seem happy at work? Do you see a lot of smiles, hear a lot of laughter? People generally happy to come into the workplace every day. Okay, so you can tally up your points and we can see how we did. So if you got an 8 to 10, you probably have a fairly strong workplace. And you're wanting to come in today and hear some of our strategies to kind of help improve and enhance what you already have going on. If you got a 5 to 7, you're probably doing pretty good, but there's a bit of work to do. So you're going to find the strategies that we give you today are probably helpful in kind of getting where you want to be and moving forward. And if you got under 5, you're probably going to find these strategies helpful, but what you're going to want to do is really assess your workplace and find where you're going to want to start to try and build up and rebuild some of that workplace culture.
Okay, so let's start with the business case, and we're going to start with why we worry about employee resiliency. When we're talking about employee resiliency, really what we're talking about is just coping strategies and things that employers can do to help employees build more coping strategies. We'll start off by looking at mental health. And if we're looking at mental health, I want to start at the very basics. What is mental health? So when I say the word mental health, what pops into your brain? Just shout it out. What do you think about when I say mental health?
Anxieties.
Anxieties? Yeah. Depression? Stress? Yeah. What else? Illness? Alcohol? Okay. All right. All of those things can fall under that umbrella of mental health and wellness. But often what happens in everyday language, we use the terms mental health and mental illness and problems. We kind of use those interchangeably. So we want to really define those terms and make sure we're really clear when we're talking about them. We'll start off with mental health. What is mental health? Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes their own abilities and can cope with the normal stresses of life. In essence, mental health is an important part of our overall health, and it looks at our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being. We can contrast that on the opposite side to mental illness. So mental illness is a serious disturbance in thoughts and feelings and perceptions, and it's severe enough to affect us in our day-to-day functioning. But that's really a diagnosable one when it's affecting us day-to-day. So more often you're going to hear us use the terms mental health problems and illnesses, because that just lets us talk about anything in terms of, behavior, thinking, emotions that cause us distress. And as a society and as a business, we really care about mental health. 1 in 3 Canadians experience a mental illness during their lifetime. So take a minute to think about that stat, 1 in 3 in our lifetime. That's a lot of people. 1 in 7 employees currently have some sort of mental health issue. And out of those, 82% say it is in some ways impacting their work. And we know that mental health disorders impact an employer more than physical disorders in terms of absenteeism, medical costs, short and long-term disability, and productivity.
So one of the things that really impact our mental health is how we cope with and manage stress. Sorry, I'm stuck in my throat. Thank you. So we may notice that with some people, they're able to take on really large amounts of stress and just handle it and deal with it. And then with others, it seems like even just the smallest bit of stress can seem to overwhelm them. But like resilience, this is something that can be learned. So we're going to show you a video that has a really great analogy on how learned coping skills can enhance our ability to manage the stress within our lives.
When trying to measure our stress tolerance, the bucket analogy can be helpful. Our stress tolerance, or the size of our bucket, is a product of our genes, personality, and life experiences, and its size varies from person to person. The water in this analogy is the combination of all the stress in your life. We use the coping strategies we have available to keep our bucket from overflowing. They are like taps that allow water to drain from the bucket. Stress can include training, work, school, relationships, finances, moving, changing jobs, or the loss of a loved one. Both positive and negative experiences will affect the water level. A big bucket can hold more water or stress before it overflows. With a smaller bucket, less water is required for the water or stress level to become critical. While you can't change the size of your bucket, you can make life adjustments to reduce water coming in. You can also learn new coping strategies and stress management techniques to allow water to drain out. Mind tools, exercise, quality sleep, relaxation, and sharing your feelings with friends are some examples of effective water taps. Staying up late, sleeping in, drugs, inactivity, procrastination, suppressing or ignoring problems are examples of unhelpful coping strategies or false taps. They might give temporary relief, but actually result in water flowing back into your bucket.
So how do you know if, how do you know if your workplaces are stressful? Honestly, it's pretty intuitive. You can look around your workplace and tell if people are stressed out. I used to do auditing earlier in this career, and I could tell you within 10 minutes of walking into a business if it was a really stressful place to work or if people had a manageable workload. And it's really important to think about stress in our workplaces and how much stress people are experiencing because it links to our mental health. 51% of adults who felt highly stressed reported feelings of depression, and 61% reported feeling anxious. And it's common. 1 in 4 Canadians report feeling stressed, highly stressed, and 60% of them noted that work was a big contributing factor to that. And 80% of Canadian workers say they would like their bosses to take a more active role in terms of helping them manage their stress.
And we know that individuals each have their own levels of resiliency, but this is heavily influenced by the workplace. When you have staff that are feeling stressed or high levels of stress for long periods of time or feeling really overworked, this can eventually lead to burnout. So what's the difference between stress and burnout? Well, with stress, you're going to see high levels of over-engagement. You're going to see reactive or overreactive emotions, and you're going to find that they have a sense of urgency or hyperactivity. They want to go, 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 and let's get this done. And then they could potentially lead to a crash where they're lost or diminished energy, And stress can often lead to anxiety, and it's very physically tolling the individual. Now, where you can see this shift to burnout, it's going to be very clear in an individual because there's going to be quite a flip. So you're now going to see high levels of disengagement and very blunted or distant emotions. They're probably going to feel a sense of helplessness, and that motivation that they had so much of before is now lost or at least just extremely diminished. And this often leads to feelings of depression and is very emotionally tolling on the individual.
So who in your organization is most likely to burn out? Both research and experience tell us that it is most likely going to be your star performers. It is those people who are most invested in your business that are giving and giving and giving until they're burnt out. It's people who work long hours and have a very heavy workload, and it's often your management and people with key responsibilities that are likely to burn out first.
So what does this mean to you? We want to give you guys a couple minutes to just really reflect and talk on that, and talk about what are some issues your employees are facing in terms of coping skills. So we're going to give everyone like 2 or 3 minutes, and you can just turn to your neighbor and have a conversation just discussing this, what you see in your workplace, and then we'll all come back and maybe share it with this.
Okay. I work as the aquatic supervisor of the pool here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, like the IP, well, one thing is kind of that when we have major incidents that happen, you know, we get some stress related to that. But it's more like the workload, because there's quite a large workload for the middle management in any aquatic environment. So there's always lots of things to manage, like whether it's projects, larger projects, day-to-day activities, all that stuff. That kind of balance all those things. So yeah. How about you guys?
No, I think it's probably the text. They're paid all flat rate, so the better they perform or faster, more efficient, they get paid.
Oh, okay.
I think it's that fine line that, trying to make money, trying to do it, trying to do it on time and that sort of thing, without any return. I don't know, that's what I think. I think our tactics are mostly the ones that burn out.
Where do you guys work? Okay.
So all the cleaning taxes and the service tax are probably most vulnerable, I would say, as far as any issues.
Lots of external pressures.
And then the office staff or office staff middle people.
Yeah.
They feel as well. Certain days, loggers and others.
Yeah. For sure.
So how do they cope with that?
Yeah. Yeah. How do they cope? I mean, that's right. Well, we've recently put a few little things in place, like that people are allowed to take a swim break on their shift if they need it. If they want a little 20-minute swim, we can, they're very accommodating for that. Flexible work schedule. That's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
So does anyone have anything that they want to share? Anything you guys discussed that was
Yeah. Select a couple, yeah.
big one? Yeah.
Coping with change, yeah, absolutely.
And we're changing at such a rate these days that you just get used to something and then.
It's constant, yeah. I agree. Yeah.
We work in an environment with service tax and collision tax, and so they're flat rate, so they get paid based on production. So what's the fine line of producing and not burning out? Because they make more money if they produce, but at the same time, are they producing too quickly, too fast, not efficient enough? And I think that causes or can cause stress for them for sure.
And burnout. And that's a common scenario where people are incentivized to work longer hours, right? Longer hours, the more I make, so I want to work more hours. And then at what point do we let people just keep working and working until we know they're getting too stressed and burnt out, right? It is a fine line to work to walk that for sure.
I think technology too. It's like, you know, back in the day when you actually used to just do filing yourself, like paper, and you could just dumb down for that day of filing. Whereas we need to perform at top level constantly because everything, all those simple tasks are done for us now. So we need to be like that constant on our game all the time, decision making.
Yeah, I agree. And what happens to most of us when our tech doesn't work? Where's your stress level?
It's like today.
You've got that helpless feeling, but I really need this tech. Yeah, absolutely. And I might, if you're okay, I want to add to that a little bit. For many of us too, it's the Zoom, right? Instead of all the face-to-face meetings, now we're Zooming and all the Zoom fatigue that people are feeling and being in tech all the time.
We know that investing in mental health is important, but we can see it's actually quite high, where $1 invested in employee mental health gives an average of $2 to $6 return in future savings.
Okay, so now I think we've built a bit of a business case for employee resiliency. So now let's look at organizational resiliency. And you know, we need to make sure that we look at both sides of that equation, because even the most resilient employee is not going to function well in a toxic workplace. So let me ask that question. What's a toxic workplace? What makes a workplace toxic? You're thinking this is a really toxic workplace. What's it got going on?
Uneven work distribution.
Uneven work distribution, somebody slaving away and somebody not getting anything on their work plate. Absolutely. What else? Micromanagement. Oh, yes, absolutely. Stress. Yeah, I heard stress. Trust. Oh, sorry. Yeah, trust. Lack of, right? Lack of trust. We don't really think that things are the way they should be. Yeah, absolutely. What else? A toxic employee can absolutely start to, cause that in the environment. Yeah, and I would just really say a toxic manager, right? Someone who's angry, spewing those emotions, that can really bring the workplace down. Absolutely. Okay, we got one or two more. What else makes it toxic?
Poor leadership.
Poor leadership. Yeah, leadership can be a really big one. Yeah. Favoritism. Ooh, absolutely. Yeah, that nepotism is terrible.
And then support, probably.
Support. Yeah, people don't have the support that they need. Absolutely. So when we are talking about all of these things, what we're really talking about is workplace culture, right? So workplace culture, what is it? Well, let's look at formally what it is. It's our shared values, our attitudes, behaviors, standards that we have in our workplace. It's our formal and informal rules and practices that we have. It's the day-to-day experiences that people have with our businesses. And it's our external brand and messaging. But what is workplace culture really? It is what happens when the manager's not working, how employees behave. It's your overall workplace atmosphere. It's how your clients and your customers experience your workplace when they're in it and when they're interacting with it. And it's whether or not people are happy going to work. All of those things really make a workplace culture.
And workplace culture is incredibly significant to employees. You can see that 77% of job seekers consider a company's culture before applying for a job. 56% of employees reported that company culture is more important to them than salary when it comes to job satisfaction. And 80% of people would choose a job with a lower salary, but a better cultural fit. So how is this culture translated from the top to the people working? Well, a big piece of this is through leadership. And it's not just your senior leadership, it's also your people-facing leadership. So this is your managers and your supervisors. And what are some other things that can impact a workplace culture? Well, we can look at workload, right? Is it reasonable or is it excessive? Do people feel like they have control or autonomy over the work they do? Or at least do they feel like they have input and can give that input? Do they have the resources and support that they need in order to effectively do the job that you need them to do? And do they have recognition and reward for doing the job, but going above and beyond as well? And also, lastly, do your employees feel that there's a sense of fairness? They don't have to agree with every decision that you've made, but they should agree that there is some sort of fair process in order to make those decisions.
Okay, so now we've built that business case. Let's look at the strategies that we can use to build that resiliency in our workplaces. And I want to ask, why is this so important now? And I want to sort of, I guess, answer that a little bit in terms of saying that the research behind resiliency and business success has been around for a long time, but I think it's become very relevant and more relevant than it has been in the past. And part of that is because of something that nobody wants to talk about, and that is COVID. Whatever we feel about the pandemic, we know that it had a real impact on our businesses. And we know that it caused a lot of stress for people. And we know that it had a really negative impact on people's mental health. And what all of that eventually led to is the year of the burnout. 2022 has actually become known as the year of the burnout. Why? Well, think back to what was going on in 2022. We were finally coming out of all that pandemic stuff, but we didn't get this really nice finish line that we got to run across and say, whew, it's over. Instead, what happened is we just started morphing into the new normal, and we didn't really know what that meant. And all that stress that we've been dealing with for the last few years, it all started to catch up with us. It had a big impact on our workplaces. We look at the Canadian burnout rate in 2022, it was higher than it had ever been. 35% of employees said they were feeling burnt out. That's over 1 in 3. And in terms of our province, Alberta, we rated with the Prairies in terms of the top 2 provinces for burnout. Our burnout rate was at 38%. And of course, all of that contributed to a sense of lack of people and staffing shortages, right? And so what happened, we can look back to 2022 and we can see that in 2022, we look at December, 31% of businesses were saying they had a significant staffing shortage. 30% were saying they had a pretty moderate staffing shortage. Things have gotten better. 2022 has improved a little bit, but not by much. We still have 60% of employers noting that they're dealing with staffing shortages. And all of this makes sense when we look at some of the stats for what employers are concerned about. In 2022, employee mental health was among the top 3 concerns of Canadian employers.
So we can take a look at the things that we've been talking about today in a real world business case example. And that is with Unilever. So many of you may have heard of Unilever. They're a multi-conglomerate corporation and they own companies such as Dove, or Hellmann's, Lipton's. And a few years back, they were actually really struggling. Their sales were down and they knew they had to do work differently. So what did they do? They started off by developing training and development programs. So this included workshops, seminars, online resources that help teach their employees about coping strategies like we're talking about today, like stress management and mindfulness and different things to help them with their mental health. Next, they looked at flexible working arrangements. So for employees who could, they arranged for them to work from home or at least have a more flexible schedule so that they were able to reduce the stress in their life and have that better work-life balance. Next, they really implemented a lot of mental health support and resources. So this looked at things like introducing counselors or online resources and helplines. They also worked really hard to reduce the stigma around mental health in their workplace. So they pushed mental health conversations to be a commonplace on par with conversations about things like physical health. And lastly, they really made a point to train their leadership and managerial support. So they got trained to really help the staff when they noticed they were struggling and having high levels of stress and difficulty and needed that understanding and support within the workplace. And the impact of these initiatives was actually very significant. They saw things like improved employee well-being, for employees that they felt more supported, they had lower stress levels and a higher sense of well-being. They noticed a raise in employee productivity and engagement and reduction in absenteeism in the workplace, especially in relation to stress-related issues. And lastly, they just saw an overall positive organizational shift in the culture. And because of all of this, their sales went up. So many of you may be thinking, okay, but Unilever is a multi-billion-dollar corporation with the finances and resources to fund a big culture shift like that, and we agree. But what we want to do today is we want to show you similar initiatives that you can implement in your businesses that they did, but just on a smaller, maybe slightly more affordable scale.
So taking it back to how we were looking at resilience, we were looking at it in terms of the employee and in terms of the organization. So when we take a look at it from the employee perspective, what we're going to be looking at is just enhancing coping skills and what employers can do to support that. And organizationally, we're going to be looking at just creating a healthier workplace culture.
So now we're talking about what it looks like when we're building those coping skills. So we're going to be looking at strategies that people can use to build those coping skills and build that overall sense of resiliency. As an employer, one of the best things that you can do for an employee is provide them with training and information. And this can be on things such as managing mental illness, building positive mental health habits, and dealing with stress management.
And it's really important that we help people understand some of the strategies for building our mental selves. Because as a society and overall, we're really good at knowing what we do for our physical selves, right? What do we do to keep ourselves physically healthy?
Exercise.
Exercise.
Eat healthy.
Yeah, nutrition, right? Sleep, don't forget sleep, that's an important one. But we know what we need to do to stay physically healthy. But we're not as good at knowing what it is we need to do to protect and enhance our mental self. We just don't teach that and we aren't as aware. And we know that there is no health without mental. What often happens is we can really take our stress management strategies and put them into two camps. So we can talk about negative stress management strategies, those that just don't serve us well in the long run. Negative stress management strategies are what often happen when we try and ignore our stress and push it away, and then all of a sudden we end up reacting to it. Positive stress management strategies, those are the ones that do help us in the long run. Positive stress management strategies are the ones that happen when we're paying attention to our stress. We're trying to manage it as it goes along, and we're being very proactive. In essence, what we're trying to do as we're helping employees build those strategies, we're trying to help them build the toolbox. Think ahead on a number of proactive strategies that people can use to do better in terms of managing their stress as they go along. And what we're going to share with you next is just some of the strategies that we share as part of our stress management workshops and our building mental health habits workshops. And these are just some of the strategies that people can use to build their toolbox.
So first, I want to know, how do you talk to yourself? So I'm guessing you, like many of us, have a little voice in your head that kind of narrates what's going on throughout the day in your life and talking back and forth to yourself in your head. And it's important to just take a second and reflect. How does that voice talk to you? Is it a nice voice? Does it treat you well? Like, for example, if you mess up on something, does it say, "Oh, you idiot, that was so stupid. I can't believe you just did that." Does it say, "Okay, shoot, we messed up. It's okay, we got this. Let's move on"? No, probably for most of us, it was that first one. And what's really important is how that voice talks to you. If you wouldn't speak to someone else like that, why do you feel like it's okay to speak to yourself like that? You can imagine how damaging it would be for your mental health if you had someone in your life who was always putting you down and talking negative, saying, oh, you messed up, you're so dumb. So of course, this is really imperative to our mental health as well, the way we talk to ourselves. At the end of the day, it's important that it should be a good friend and not a bad critic.
Another mental health habit we can think about is worrying and catastrophizing. So this is because many of us tend to spiral down into negative things that never happen and are never going to happen. I'll give you an example. When Rowan first graduated high school, she went traveling for 2 years, and she traveled all across Asia, Southeast Asia, and Australia. And there would be days when I wouldn't hear from her. Where do you think my mind went when I didn't hear from her? Guessing every parent in the room, I see some heads nodding. Yeah, I know exactly where your head went. Did I think things like, oh, she's probably just having fun, or oh, she's an adult, she doesn't have to check in with me every day, or maybe she just doesn't have cell service. Nope. My head went down the deepest, darkest places. She'd been robbed, she'd been kidnapped, she was lying in a ditch somewhere. And many of us do that. We tend to get into that negative mental spiral and we think all these terrible, awful things. But one of the tricks to stopping ourselves from doing that is to very purposefully flip it around. And instead of all the negatives, force yourself to stop and think instead, what if it's all okay? And when we stop ourselves from doing that and we make ourselves focus on the positives, we can stop that negative habit and get ourselves from doing it all the time. There's some really interesting research that came out of Penn State University. And they found that on average, people have between 3 to 4 worrying thoughts each day. Out of those, how many do you think actually happen? Give me a number. 0?
1.
1? Yeah, you guys aren't too far off. 91% of those never came true. And of those 9% that did actually happen to people, about 1/3 of them weren't nearly as bad as people thought they were going to be. So what about that last 6%? The truth is, us worrying and having all these negative, catastrophic thoughts, it doesn't stop the outcome. It doesn't change if those 6% are going to happen or not. All it does is put us in this less resilient place where we're stressed and we're anxious and we're less able to deal with problems when they do come along.
One of the best tools that we've come across in terms of finding your own mental health and where you are in your mental health is the mental health continuum. What this tool does is it shows us there's not just mentally healthy and mentally ill. There's an entire continuum in between the two that helps us gauge where we're at. So we can take a look at this and start with healthy. This is your normal functioning, good, you're going about your day-to-day. You have normal mood fluctuations or sleep fluctuations, but overall you're doing pretty good. Now, if you have, say, for example, high levels of stress, you may move into the reactive phase. We're going to see things like nervousness, irritability, maybe some procrastination or tiredness. And if this continues on for longer periods of time, this can go into the injured phase. So we're going to see more pervasive sadness, anxiety, anger, maybe some aches, and decreased performance. If this continues unchecked, you may fall into the mentally ill phase. So this is where you have a diagnosable mental illness, and it can be severe or persistent. This is excessive anxiety, depression. Mainly, it's just saying that you are not able to perform your normal day-to-day functions. And you may have heard a talk recently about boundaries. It's becoming more and more of a big topic. And we're going to take a look at why boundaries are important and what does it really mean. So this is a short interview clip with Brene Brown. Has anyone heard of Brene Brown? Yeah, okay, yeah. She is blowing up a little bit. So she has a couple books. She even has an HBO special, and she's really great. I recommend checking her out. But she's a researcher on human emotions. So here's a little clip on her opinion on why boundaries are so important.
One of the shocking findings of my work was the idea that the most compassionate people I have interviewed over the last 13 years were also the absolutely most boundaried. Because so I'll give you a great definition. The definition of boundary that I use in the book. Boundary is simply what's okay and what's not okay. What I think we do is we don't set boundaries. We let people do things that are not okay, or get away with behaviors that are not okay. Then we're just resentful and hateful. Me, I'd rather be loving and generous and very straightforward with what's okay and what's not okay. And I did not, that I learned from the research. I was the exact opposite. I assumed for the first 35 years of my life that people were sucking on purpose just to piss me off.
She's pretty great. So within the realm of coping strategies, we can also look at how we manage our stress. And this is something that we can learn. So some ideas. You want to develop a support network. We as humans are social beings naturally. So having a strong support network is really key to helping us alleviate some of that stress and feel supported in our lives. And we're actually going to give you a little later on some ways that in your workplace that you can potentially create these support networks. Next, we feel like we want to take on all the responsibilities, especially when we have a lot going on. But for our stress, it can be good to sometimes delegate those responsibilities to others who have the time and resources to be able to complete those. And like we just said, talking about boundaries can be really key when it comes to managing our stress. And that can include creating a line between your work and your home life. This can be as simple as something as, hey, I'm not answering emails after a certain time. And within this, we want to look at work-life balance. So lots of times we think, okay, in order to be productive, I need to finish that to-do list. I need to get everything done and then I can relax. The truth is there's always going to be something to do. That to-do list, I'm sure we all know, it never seems to end. It just keeps growing and growing. So we want to just take some time to ourselves. Do things like exercise, make sure we're eating healthy, get good sleep, and take time off. Just really do stuff that we enjoy that will help reduce those stress levels so we're able to better manage the work that we are doing.
So we've presented a whole lot of information again, and we just want to give some time for everybody to absorb that information and think about how does this apply to me and my workplace. We're going to do another sort of turn to your neighbor and just chat for a few minutes and think about some of the stress management strategies that you found effective at work. What are some things that you have seen employees doing, or some things that you've encouraged employees to do that have really made a difference in terms of how people are able to manage stress at work? Or maybe some of the strategies you want to bring in. Okay. Well, we'll give a couple minutes and then we'll grab some.
Okay. Well, I think just like sometimes like getting out of the building on lunch hours, you know, just kind of getting out, getting a little exercise or getting a little fresh air, finding a quiet spot, just getting away from things for a little while, help me out.
Break. People are always on computers now. You can sit there and, you know, today just sitting there at your computer, but getting up for you. Break from this house. And the hockey breaks, they usually take advantage of that.
Yeah. Pretty essential, I'd say. Like, you know, even to just switch from one thing to another for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. Like even when I was in university, like they said, okay, well, if you just have a certain system of studying for 50 minutes and only taking a 10-minute break on the hour, your brain can kind of like reset and then you're more productive and like studying, you know. So it's kind of the same thing, you know, but you just take a tiny little break. You know, nothing has to be too long, but like little breakaway helps reset. You know? Yeah.
See people go to walk and you get so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're not outside, you're building all the time. It's good to Just get on.
Yeah. Let's see here. I don't know.
We have. Whatever people, you know.
Yeah, they're kind of coming up with their own individual, right? But yeah, what else?
Everybody's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the trick. It's something to do.
But yes,
Or that, some new lesson.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, it sort of depends where you are on that whole spectrum of like healthy to ill, you know, how much you kind of like need to find these strategies.
Yeah, it's a lot. Never. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna bring it all back. And just hear some of the ideas that were shared. I know one I heard right off the bat was wine, but I'm not really sure. Yes, I heard. What were some ideas that you guys had? Things that you've seen in your workplace in terms of coping skills that have been effective? Socializing and social activities. Yeah, building those social networks in the workplace. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really big one, right? When we're all together in it, it's so much better.
Throw in food. I mean,
I
didn't say wine. It wasn't me.
But yeah, it's a big one, right? It brings us together. Any other ones?
Open door policy.
Open door policy, yeah, you can come and talk to us when we need to have those conversations. That can help people reduce their stress, right? Instead of worrying about it, they can have a conversation.
A time of doing nothing.
Some downtime. Yeah, having some downtime and giving because we do get in that process when we just go, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Encourage people to take breaks.
Taking those breaks. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, those are some really good strategies. Yeah.
Well, like recently, this started out as being like a sort of tactic to kind of get, like, I work at the pool, and this started out as being a tactic to get people to like just swim for work because we want to keep our fitness levels up and things like that. And so lately we've just made it easy for people to say, I'm going to take a 20-minute swim break.
Nice.
So just opening that up, and it's going to help us because our lifeguards will stay hopefully fitter, but it will also help just in case they're having a bad day, they can go and take a swim when they need it.
Nice.
Yeah.
And even if we can't all do a swim break, which
yeah.
I love, by the way.
Yeah.
Just going for a walk.
Or
yeah. Some way of just taking that break, going up and down the stairs a few times, getting that physical activity. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Or you do that at the county too, because everybody's like,
yes,
all the time they're perched at the end of their desk, and then like you'll step outside. Like I always step outside for a few minutes, and it's like, oh, it's gorgeous, 20 degrees. Then I'll like pick on something. Here, you gotta see this, and they come out the back, and it's like, oh, it's the sun. And they're like, oh wow, yeah, there's a.
And going for walks or lunch breaks and things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
The weather this month is really helpful.
For sure, yeah. They won't be following me out in January.
Hey, those are some really good strategies. Other things that employers can do in terms of supporting is having mental health resources for people. Where are you going to find those resources? Start with your benefits or your employee family assistance program if you have those. When we work with businesses, I'm always surprised how many employees don't know what's available in their own workplace because it's not often talked about or advertised. So even just look at what you have and share that out with employees. There's some great websites that you can go to get lots of free resources and information. Mental health, you might even, if you want to snap this one, like take a picture of it, go ahead. Mental Health Commission of Canada, Canadian Mental Health Association, and Mental Health Resources of Canada are all three really good resources. You can just put those acronyms in and search, and they should pop up. There's a mental health hotline that we have in Alberta. You can give that to employees so that people can call it. And this is kind of cool. On November 30th of this year, Canada is about to launch a national mental health hotline. And so this is a crisis hotline for people, and you can either access it by chat or by voice. So you can phone in or just chat. And there are trained people on that line to help people when they're in a mental health crisis. And another website online that many people don't know about is called Easy Care. And it lets people go in, have a free mental health meeting with a counselor online, and then they connect them into resources within Alberta Healthcare that can support them. So lots of resources are out there, even if we don't have big budgets to be able to bring them in. But at the end of the day, personal strategies aren't the only thing that we can focus on. I mean, we cannot throw people into shark-infested waters and tell them, you know, just swim, they'll be fine. So we need to look at the other side of that equation, and that is our workplace culture and ways that we can make our workplace culture more resilient. When we're talking about having a workplace culture that supports people in terms of their mental health and wellness, what we're really looking at is a term called psychological health and safety. You may have heard that term thrown around, but it's one that people are getting to know more and more. And in terms of psychological health and safety, there's actually a really good CSA standard. Bit of bad news, Canada was one of the first to launch a workplace standard. We were a global leader in this area. This standard, it's unlike most CSA standards, it's free. So it's a free download. It's become the most downloaded standard ever for CSA. And the standard, it's not a really good how-to guide, but it does give you some basic levels in terms of how to prevent mental health harm to workers in the workplace, how to promote overall mental health and wellness, and then how to resolve any issues that do occur in your workplace. Within that standard, there are 13 psychosocial factors. And so you kind of look at that list, I don't know about you, but it's a little bit dizzying, right? Like, ooh, 13, that's so many different things. But there are a lot of things that we look at in the workplace anyway. So, you know, clear leadership and our organizational culture, recognition and reward, workplace balance, engaging people. As a employer, you're not going to try and tackle all 13 of these things at once. That would overwhelm any business. What you want to do is go in and figure out for your company, what is our biggest issue? What are the things we should focus on first and then move forward from there? So how do you figure out what that is? One of the easiest ways is to just talk to your people. So you can informally have those conversations with your leadership, with your employees. A great way is to see if your leadership view of culture and your employee view of culture matches or if it's different. But you can also do some surveys. So this website, Guarding Minds at Work, was put together by professionals in the field. It has free surveys. And the one I would recommend is called an initial scan survey. So it's a little 6-question survey you can give to staff. You actually can input your data into the website and it'll spit you out a report and tell you which of those psychosocial factors is your biggest issue. And it'll even give you ideas on actions you can do in your workplace to help build those forward. So it's a fantastic place to start when you're assessing it. And when we look at how to enhance our workplace culture, you'll get some ideas from how you assess it. But for today, what we want to do is just give some general ideas, some easy ideas that you can bring into your workplace to start on Monday if you want, or tomorrow, in terms of tackling the workplace culture and just making it better. Right. Some of the things you can do is focus on the positives. So it is really easy for us to start on the negatives, right? How did it go? Oh, well, and then we start in with all the things that went wrong. And we tend to do that almost by nature. What you want to do is just flip it around and think about the positives. Celebrate those small wins, those good things that you're seeing on a day-to-day basis. And in your staff meetings. In your staff meetings, before you jump in and start talking about all the issues that you have to solve and all the things going wrong, first, go around the room and have everyone say something positive. What went right this week? What's going good right now? And you start your meeting off on a positive note. Put it on your agenda, make it part of your practice every time you have a staff meeting. And then also just recognize and build on the strengths of your business. What are things we're already doing well? Let's really focus on those and celebrate them.
And I've noticed living in Barrhead, we're actually quite a diverse community, which is so great. And it's really important for businesses within a diverse community to really make sure everyone feels included and feels like they belong. So when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we want to put those all together to bring that sense of belonging within our workplace. And one way to do this is to recognize and appreciate our employees. So some simple ideas of how you can do that. Small gestures can go a long way. So this could be as simple as saying, hey, I noticed what you did. Thank you so much. Or maybe a little shout out in a staff meeting. Or sometimes that $10 gift card can mean so much more when it comes to what it meant to the employee. We can also let employees give and receive praise to one another. So hand it back to your employees. Give them initiatives in ways they can say thank you or good job to one another. And we can also give it back to our health and safety communities and our committees and just get their feedback and their ideas on how we can do this as well. And we can also make workplace culture fun. It doesn't all have to be like rules and regulations. We can find ways to make this fun. So before I give some ideas, I want to hear what you guys do in workplaces to make it fun. What are some things that you guys do? Some ideas you've seen that just make coming to work fun?
I did a personality. We had a meeting and did a personality thing where you could 50 different animals and go with all the personalities, but it really teaches everybody like how different everybody is, and it helps you interact with other people because everybody thinks different and everything like that. So it's kind of a learning thing, but made it fun too.
Totally, that's a really good idea. I like that one.
We do a lot of stuff outside the store, so like a camp out, went to speeders, movie night, bowling night, stuff like that. That's outside, so you get to know everybody a little bit more on the personal side.
Dropping you off the job. Oh, it's really good. Yeah. What else?
Staff barbecues, things like that.
Feed people, right? Like Christy said. Feed
Yeah,
people. Show up.
I think any way that you can kind of connect your staff, like your employees, on a personal level, even not necessarily a work level, but where they can appreciate each other personally and respect their work. I don't know, maybe I'm just out to lunch.
No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Because once you become almost friends with the people you work with on a personal level, then if there is conflict in the workplace, it's way more easy to be like, oh, it's my friend, I'll go work it out. I'm sure they didn't mean it like that or whatever it is, instead of having that professional wall there or something. Sometimes that can just make it so much easier to have cohesive teams that want to work together. Yeah, those are all awesome ideas. We can share a few more, but like those are better than ours. So like what was said, you can bring some food, have a staff lunch or a pizza party. And you can do kind of similar to what we're doing today. You can do a lunch and learn. So bring everyone together, feed them, and then learn something new as a group. You can also connect through common interests. So find ways to talk about books or movies or sports and ways that connect other people. Or you can do interactive challenges or games. This could seriously be as simple as putting some games and puzzles in the break rooms. Then when people are on their lunch break, they are more inclined to put their phone away and connect with the other employees in the room.
All right, let's flip to this quote. We're going to, as you can tell, we stole from superhero movie. With great power comes great responsibility. When we think about our workplace cultures, it's really important to recognize that as leaders, we have one of the biggest impacts on our overall workplace. And not just our senior leadership, but as we were saying before, our front-facing leaders. I'm going to ask a question. How many people in the room have supervisors that have had specialized training to learn about how to best manage people? So give me a thumbs up if your supervisors had, people management training. Thumbs down if they've never received that training.
You can give a kind of.
Yeah, you can give a maybe, not sure. Not official. Okay. I do see some that were trained that's fantastic, but what often happens in our workplaces, we take the person who was doing the best job and we promote them without giving them the skills that they need to know how to empower employees, how to communicate, how to manage people. And so we're going to share with you some of the skills that we share when we do the supervisor training, some of the skills that you can build in your supervisors to make them better at managing people. And we'll start with this one on communication. All of us can work to be better communicators. And one of, I think, the underappreciated parts of communication is listening. And when we think about listening, we can recognize that there's really a couple of different kinds of listening. There's listening to respond, and there's active listening. So let me give you an example. A worker comes into the lunchroom and they just got back from vacation and they're all excited and they're telling you all about their vacation, and partway through their story, it kind of triggers this really funny thing that happened to you on your last vacation. And so instead of listening to the rest of the story, now you're kind of just waiting for them to stop so that you can jump in and tell your really funny story, right? That's listening to respond. If we were to instead do active listening, what we would do is work that story. Yeah, it's funny, but it can be, said another day, and continue to tune into that person. Give them your verbal and nonverbal clues, and even more, ask them questions that really enhances the story overall. Like, what was your favorite part? What would you recommend? What would you do again? Because when we use active listening, we have that chance to really build a rapport with someone instead of showing them that we aren't really interested in what they have to say.
And one of the biggest contributors to a negative workplace culture is conflict. So why should we care about conflict? Well, it's actually quite a big time waster in a lot of organizations. The average employee spends 2.8 hours each week dealing with conflict in the workplace. 30% of managers spend 5 or more hours per week addressing conflict within their teams. 25% of employees have taken time off to deal with workplace conflict, while 10% ended up quitting their jobs because of that conflict. And 36% of employees believe that workplace conflict negatively affects the quality of service that they can provide to their customers. So I want to ask you guys another question here. Do you feel that your supervisors are good at managing conflict? Do they have the skills? Are they able to nip it in the butt? We can do thumbs up, thumbs down, medium again. Okay, lots of thumbs down this time. Medium, pretty good. Okay, so yeah, medium, mix of answers. Managing conflict is not always easy. As we know, it can sometimes be really, really hard. And there are 7 key steps when it comes to navigating difficult conversations with employees. But today we're just going to take a look at one of them. And that is being objective. So we know when we come into this conversation, we want to make sure we're objective. But at the end of the day, we're humans. That's not always what our first instincts are. We usually bring in our emotions and specifically our biases into these kinds of conversations. We can take a look at 2 very common biases to give us an idea of what we're talking about. So the first one is this confirmation bias. So this is when you have your belief and you look at only the facts that support your own belief and tend to kind of just ignore anything that contradicts it. So we all have done this before and can see in other people when they do this as well. Another really popular bias is the status quo bias. So this is when someone says, nope, this is the way we've always done things. So come on, get on board, right? Why should we change? This is how we always do it. And like we've talked about a lot today, there's always change going on, especially in recent years. So this one's really one we want to tackle. And understanding these biases is what helps us remain objective in these kinds of conversations. And that's kind of the first step when we go into this conversation.
All right, so just circling it back, when we're looking at building resiliency within our workplace cultures, figuring out, starting at the beginning with what's our low-hanging fruit? What are the things that are most impacting us right now? Starting with those 1 or 2 things that you're going to bring into your workplace. And then as those are coming into play, then just think in terms of continuous improvement. Okay, hey, that worked really well. What can we do next? And building your workplace culture brick by brick until it becomes stronger. All right, we are going to finish it up here. In terms of resilience, we had that chance to look at it from an individual employee perspective. We took a look at many of the coping skills that we can encourage employees to build, and as employers, we can support them in building. And then we took a look at our organizations as a whole, and we looked at many of the ways that we can build a healthier workplace culture. We want to give this back to you guys before we sort of finish the end here. We've got one more activity after this. What, out of all of those things that we've talked about today, what are some things that you think could be a good fit with your business? And maybe what are some things that you could start bringing into play even tomorrow? So we'll give a couple of minutes, again, just to let everybody sort of absorb that information and think about how it applies to you in the workplace. And then we'll get some ideas and finish up.
Survey. That's survey out. See what that looks like. Maybe do that as an activity.
Yeah, so it's like somewhat like of an anonymous survey of types, right? Where they can say whatever, you know, is kind of coming to mind. I think that's kind of the important part is, you know, you never know what you're going to get out of something like that, but it could be, I mean, good, you know, depends on what like common answers are, I suppose.
Yeah.
I like the personality, like possibly like checking out people learning about different their personality and how it differs from others, right? Because I think it might help
Understand.
help people understand each other a little bit better.
Yeah. Colors, right? It's colors. Personality of colors.
Yeah.
It's an orange and you're this type of person. Yellow.
Yeah. That was always pretty interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah, based on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta find some good training.
We're gonna bring it back. I actually feel a little bad jumping in. I can see some really good conversations going down. Just give us a couple ideas. What were some things you thought you could bring back to work maybe this week? Start with something positive. Something positive. Start the meetings and thinking positive. I like that. Yeah, thanks, girl. Boundaries. Boundaries. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe having individual talks with your employees just to see where they're at.
Yeah, connecting with people, finding out where they're at. Yeah, starting, that's a great idea.
I really like that survey idea.
It's
That's
really good.
cool.
And it's it honestly, that site, I will just sidetrack and say Great West Life, a provider, is the one that sponsored it. So it is like top notch that usually only the big multi-conglomerates get hold of, and it's free for everybody. It's really good. Yeah. Yeah.
So we can take a quick minute. We've all reflected on how we can potentially bring this to our businesses, and we can look at this business example from the beginning, maybe come up with some ideas of how they can implement this. So first, they would want to assess their workplace resilience. Take a look at that culture, maybe talk to some of their people, like some of the things we did today. And depending on what they find, they may want to do things like train their supervisors, right? How to better manage the people and talk to the employees. They may also want to train the employees, bring in a trainer to talk about things like mental health, stress, fatigue, and coping strategies. They're going to want to look at their overall culture and say, okay, where can we make some improvements? And look at some of the things we even talked about today. Small improvements like thinking positive and changing the way we do staff meetings, just to start that off. And they're also going to want to make sure that they know this is a continuous improvement. This isn't just one quick flip. This is going to take continual effort, but the payoff is going to be worth it.
I do want to say thank you to all of the organizations that made it possible for us to be here today. And I want to share a few free resources that we've managed to collect. These will actually put up on our website, so you guys can go and grab them at any time. One of the resources is called Lesson Learned from Others, and it's about companies across Canada that have done introduced psychological health and safety and many of the things that they did and what their results were. We've got a workplace cultures checklist, which is just a more thorough checklist you can go through to give you some idea of your workplace culture. We've got a mental health playbook for business leaders, looking at mental health in the workplace from a leadership perspective. A checklist, why start from scratch? Because you probably already have a lot of things in your workplace. So it shows you what you already have and then lets you know what you want to bring in. And then we've got a 10 mental health habits poster. It's free download and you can print it off, put it in your staff rooms, put it up in your workplace just to get some of the conversation started. We'll put our website up, information up at the end, but if you want to grab that, we've also got some business cards. And we want to finish off with just having a little bit of fun at the end. So we're going to get you to open your phones again, do the .it. Okay. Yeah, no. Why did we go back to that? Yes, this is it. This is it. You hit that last. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'll make the scan bigger if you want to just do the phone scan and get in quickly. Otherwise, kahoot.it, and the pin is 628-2321-818. Listen to her, don't listen.
What is that?
Yeah. Just say the number again.
628-2183.
Thank goodness for daughters.
That's
That's the only reason she brings me up.
Your eyes work well.
Yeah, I think everyone. Yeah, I think that most people still join if we start. So we're gonna get going and start.
Make it like spring in the bottom. Okay, what is the relationship between your presenters? Besties, enemies, mother-daughter, or we met on the street? All right, everybody got that? I mean, red is kind of true response. Two right answers. You have some besties.
Well, at least nobody thinks you're enemy.
Awesome.
You also get points for this, and there's prizes.
Oh, yeah.
Really mentioned that.
And you're going to be really surprised at what the prizes are for this. I'm going to pause and let everybody know. What else would we do in Barhead but give away?
You get points. We should say you get points by getting the right answer and the faster you answer.
Oh,
sorry, should have let you know at the beginning.
Okay, you can make a comeback. How can employers build a more resilient workplace culture? Discouraging employee feedback, installing a whack-a-mole game, company-wide demolition derby, or training supervisors to better empower employees. It's like in school when they tell you to pick the most right answer. So yes,
it's all good.
But the whack-a-mole game, I'll give you to you.
Oh, Riley's still in front running, but we got Ian and Jenny coming up strong. Okay.
Yeah. What is something that influences workplace culture? Recognition and reward, having bad fashion sense, lunchroom karaoke, or wearing thin hats to protect the family.
Yes, we're making kidding. We have the speaker here.
There's two head mics on there.
Okay, so
anyone in for karaoke?
I think that's a good one, personally.
Recognition and reward. I like how there's two people very committed to choosing the most fun answer. All right. Jenny's been good at participation.
Yeah, I'm not Riley at the first.
How many stages are there in the mental health continuum? 3, 4, 5, or 6? A little slower on the actual knowledge.
Oh, wait a minute. There is, yeah, that is a distractor.
Yeah, it's a trick question, okay.
Oh,
Have to be paying attention. So yeah, the answer was 4.
Oh, all right. And Riley's still in third, though. Josh and Tate. Okay, here we go.
How many Canadians will experience a mental illness during their lifetime? So it's a bit more fun. 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 1 and 5. Yeah, 1 and 3. Okay. Oh, answer. What percentage of our worrying thoughts never happen? 23%, 56%, 74%, or 91%?
Oh, oops. The opposite.
Yes, 91%.
Well, fast fingers are making a difference.
Organizational resilience is most impacted by 1, lazy employee having loud dance music on 24/7, workplace culture, or getting a live company mask.
Oh, that seems really cool.
Yeah. We had to put the word most in there, so I was like, I don't know, I mean, like, I'm using mask, I'm not sure. Okay, some people agreed with me.
I love the mascot.
Yeah.
Okay, we got Eden still in front, Riley in second, Tate coming up there on third. We got Tweedenberg and Fred.
There are blank workplace psychosocial factors. 7, 13, 17, or 23. Yes, there are 13 workplace psychosocial factors.
I'm losing.
Oh, here comes the nail biter. Something that can impact our ability to remain objective is biases, millennials, annoying people, or when our favorite TV show gets canceled. Our biases. Millennials.
Which millennials are now like 40, right? Yeah.
With great power comes a headache, a god complex, the next superhero movie, or great responsibility. Great responsibility.
All right, here we go. Fidelity. That's okay, we have more gift cards for all of you. All right, thank you guys. We really appreciated all of the feedback and how much participation we had. We hope this really helped to make it more of your workshop in terms of building workplace resiliency. We do have a week for time and questions.
We're running out of time.
We're running out of time. Okay. But we actually are going to hang here for a little bit. So if you did have questions, we'll be here and you can just come do a one-on-one question. And yeah, thank you guys so much. And don't forget.